Okay. The special meeting of the town of Easton for March 23rd is now called to order, 7:04.
Hi, Christine Halloran, the town clerk. I'm going to
It's not on.
Christine Halloran, the town clerk. I'm going to read the call of the meeting. Warning is...
Gotta be a little closer.
You take mask off if you want.
Warning is hereby given of the special town meeting to be held within and for the town of Easton on March 23rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. at Samuel Staples Elementary School, 515 Morehouse Road, Easton, to discuss and act upon the following. Number 1, shall the town appropriate the sum of $49,770 for the purchase of body and dash cam cameras for the Easton Police Department as mandated by state law? Number 2, shall the town adopt the new ordinance authorizing an increase in the stipend available to volunteer fire and emergency medical services personnel? Number 3, shall the town of Easton adopt the tax relief for the elderly ordinance as recommended by the 2021 Senior Tax Relief for the Elderly Committee? Number 4, shall the town of Easton join the Westport Weston Health District? 5, as an advisory question, should the town of Easton appropriate $249,400 for the local match requirement, 20% of the total project cost of $1,247,000 for the costs associated with constructing a multi-use pedestrian path along Sport Hill Road from the entrance of Helen Keller Middle School to the crosswalk at Silverman's Farm? Number 6, adjournment of the town meeting to a machine vote to be held on Tuesday, March 30th, 2021, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Samuel Staples Elementary, per order of the Easton Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Christine. Good evening. I want to welcome everybody, both those of you who are here and who are watching at home tonight. This is a special town meeting of the town of Easton. As you're aware, on the one hand, this is one of our oldest and greatest traditions. The town meeting is the legislative body of the town of Easton. Like so many things, though, in this year of the pandemic, it'll take place in a somewhat different format. There's been a lot of comment about that. We've tried to make options for people to appear in public and speak, and also options for people to be able to watch from home. The reason this is not totally virtual or hybrid is from the experience of several other towns, including Reading, where it was disastrous trying to do so. We are also going to adjourn these questions to a town-wide vote. There are several reasons for that. It is very difficult to certify the results of a vote in this format. It is a question that we can debate about town meetings in the future when things return to more normalcy. But it's what the town meeting was meant to do originally, which was to allow every person in the town to be able to vote on the questions of the day. And that is what we will make available to our citizenry. The 5 items that you will hear about tonight are being done tonight because they have time-sensitive elements. As you can imagine, it's been 2 years since we've had a town meeting, and there is simply a backlog of business that needs to be done. That has also been criticized, but we will move forward. You will see how these impact on budgets as we go through. And that being said, I would ask for a nomination for moderator for this meeting. Jeff Parker.
I'd like to nominate Maureen Williams.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Maureen Williams, you are the moderator.
Thank you. I'm going to set forth some some general ground rules for our meeting tonight. As Christine Halloran stated, we have 5 issues to discuss. Each one will be discussed in turn. By that I mean we'll discuss item 1 first. We'll have a speaker with respect to that issue, and then we will hear from the public with respect to that issue, and then we will close that issue and move to a machine vote. We will do each of those issues in turn. Additionally, what I wanted to make clear is that we will have 3 minutes for each public comment. If anyone wishes to make a second comment at the end of each person speaking, they are free to wait their turn and come back around again. So those are our ground rules for this evening. And with that, I will read the first issue, which is to appropriate the sum of $49,770 for the purchase of body and dash cam cameras for the Easton Police Department as mandated by state law, and ask Chief Doyle to come up and give his presentation.
Good evening, everybody. Chief Richard Doyle, Easton Police. The amount set forth is for 17 body cameras and 3 dash cameras for our 3 additional, we call them special duty cars that aren't used on everyday patrol. They do go out on the road, so they have to be equipped with cameras. 15 officers, including myself, will have to wear the body cameras, and we're looking for 2 spares. The reason we're asking for 1 for each officer, because of the logistics of the police department, at shift change, especially between day shift and evening shift, all the officers are, most of the time, not back at headquarters. And I'll use today as a perfect example. About 2:30, we had a crane pull down big communication wires at North Street and Judd Road. The road was closed. I had day shift officers up there. Evening shift had to go relieve them. And if these cameras aren't available for that officer when he walks out of the building, we could have an issue. If that officer gets involved in something between leaving headquarters and going to the scene, and now you're at the scene trying to get body cameras, taking this guy's, and now this officer is going back to go off duty, he could certainly get involved in something. So that's the reason for the amount that we're asking for and the 2 spares. We are fortunate that the amount, although it is a high amount, in talking to other police departments, one of our neighbors has to spend $250,000. We took advantage of a grant several years ago. We had all our dash cams installed. The dash cams, the equipment itself is not that expensive, the actual cameras. Like everything else in the computer world, the prices come from the building of the background, the servers, the storage, things like that. The bill does mandate it. We're looking to do it sooner than later. Because there's probably 3 major vendors in the area that do this. We already have a vendor called WatchGuard that installed all our equipment, and that's another reason why it's less expensive than other communities. We're asking to use that vendor to just build onto our system that we already have. So that's all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any member of the town of Easton who wishes to comment with respect to item 1? Would you, when you approach the microphone, please state your name and your address for the record?
Ann Maneski, 20 Morning Glory. Good afternoon, good evening. So in regard to the police dash cams and body equipment for video purposes, I believe that there was a meeting back in January or February when this was brought before the Board of Selectmen. So what I need to know is why, if that was already delegated as to go to the Board of Finance for approval, why are we here tonight?
This is not a question and answer session, just so you realize this is a forum for public comment. So I would just tell you that we need to confine our comments to the substance of the issue, which is whether or not it is appropriate to appropriate the sums that have been set forth by Chief Doyle.
appropriate the sum of $49,770 for the purchase of body and dash cameras for the Easton Police Department as mandated by state law. So this was, again, was discussed at a Town of Easton Board of Selectmen meeting. And I see Mr. Lessler is shaking his head yes. So why did this not just go before the Board of Finance for approval as typically done? If there's a state mandate and money is needed and the money is in our coffers, then that's what needed to be done. Why wasn't this done? If you have no answer for me, that tells the public a lot. The police department deserved to have this. It's state mandate. We're being played, so people know what's going on.
Thank you for your comment.
Go ahead, Andy. Go ahead, Andy.
Didn't expect to need to do this. Andy Ketchel, 85 Ketchel Street, and Chairman of the Board of Finance. This request did come before the Board of Finance. It is a special appropriation. It is not money that was in the annual budget. So therefore, it has to come before a town meeting because the Board of Finance is limited to making special appropriations up to $20,000. And we're only allowed to make one special appropriation per fiscal year to any individual department without going to a town meeting. So this is being handled properly. There is not apparently grant money available, or we have not found it. So this is something that was unanimously supported by the Board of Finance.
Thank you for your comment.
In response, this is a special meeting costing I don't know how much money for the taxpayers of Easton, probably $3,000 to $4,000 to go to a special town vote that could have been appropriated at the annual town meeting. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment with respect to item 1? Seeing no comments, we will move that resolution to a machine vote, and we will move to item 2. Item 2 is to appropriate increasing the stipend available to volunteers for our fire and emergency services. And with respect to that resolution, we will hear from Fire and Emergency Services Fire Chief Wall.
Hi, Steve Wall, Fire Chief. In 2003, the town adopted an ordinance to provide a $1,000 stipend to volunteer firefighters and EMS personnel in accordance with state statute. The stipend is based on training and participation in calls. Since then, the state statute has not changed with regards to the amount of the stipend, which is also federally taxable. 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the state did make a modification with regards to the amount that was available for the stipend. And in order for us to take advantage of that, we need to modify the original ordinance with regards to that stipend. We found over the years that the stipend does greatly assist us in training, in call participation, and to some degree in recruitment. So I see no downside to the town for modifying the ordinance to take advantage in the increase of the state statute, and I hope that the rest of the town supports it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any member of the town who wishes to be heard with respect to item 2?
Ann Minuski, Morning Glory Drive. Adopt an ordinance change increasing the stipend available to volunteers to our fire and emergency medical services. I go back a long time with our great chief with Cub Scouts and coming out onto this stage and helping him with his outfit for water safety and making sure that our Boy Scouts are protected and not going out to the ice. This is another reason, another misappropriation of funds and sending us to a town vote and having us all come out on this night. Because, again, we have the annual town meeting in a month, 1 month. We're spending another $3,000 to $4,000, if not more. Our fire and emergency medical service people deserve a stipend. However, there is no amount on what the stipend should be. So this is incorrect, and that needs to be done. that needs to be corrected.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this?
Hope this isn't going to get to be a regular thing. Andy Ketchel again. And I probably should have addressed this in the previous item. We are in the process of developing the annual town budget. The first item, this item, and the tax relief for the elderly are all items that have the potential to affect how much we have to budget for the following year. If we wait until the annual town meeting, the Board of Finance will have had to already finalize an amount for the budget, guessing whether or not the town was going to support these ordinance changes and that appropriation for the body cameras. The timing is necessary for us as a Board of Finance to be able to do our job. We also reviewed that stipend. The amount is established based on the actual work that the fire and EMS volunteers have done the prior year. So we do know the amount to put into our budget if the ordinance passes. Same thing, that we have an amount for the tax relief for the elderly that we know to put in our budget if the ordinance passes. So this is a necessary sequence of events for our board to be able to do the job and the town meeting to be able to do its job. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment with respect to item 2? Seeing none, we will pass item 2 to a machine vote. Item 3, to approve the tax relief for the elderly ordinance as recommended by the 2021 Senior Tax Relief for the Elderly Committee. And with respect to this resolution, we will hear from Paul Lindorfer.
I don't know if this is going to work or not. The town of Easton has a tax relief for the elderly program that provides tax relief for seniors 65 years and older who meet other qualification criteria and meet other eligibility requirements. So the program is governed by an ordinance, and the ordinance requires that it be reviewed every 3 years. So the committee that I just chaired, the Tax Relief for the Elderly Committee, Ordinance Committee, met in December, January, and February to take a look at the ordinance and decide if they thought any changes need to be made to the ordinance. So what we're required to do is examine what the effect of the ordinance has been on essentially the budget of the town over the last 3 years, and make any changes, recommendations for changes that we think are needed, and explain what the effect on the town would be of those changes. So we've done that. We've created a final report that was submitted to the Board of Finance, who approved it and approved the recommendations that the committee has asked for, and then was in the documentation of tonight's meeting. So hopefully, if you have interest in it, you've been able to read it. So we only of the substantial number of requirements that a senior needs to agree to or to fall into. We've only really recommended one. There's an age limit, 65 years and older. There's an income limit, family income limit, or household income limit of $85,000 and below. And there's an asset limit that your combined assets of for all the inhabitants of that property has to be less than $750,000. So the committee has only really recommended one change, and that is that we lower that asset limit from $750,000 down to $650,000. And we're leaving all the other requirements in the program as they were, because they seem to, we've measured them against other towns around us, and it seems to be a pretty generous program for our seniors in town.
Thank you. We now seem to be having technical difficulties with the microphone, so we're going to take a brief recess, and I mean a brief recess of a minute to fix the microphone.
people at home are seeing who's speaking. They don't need to see who's listening.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public who wishes to be heard with respect to Resolution 3?
Ann Minuski, Morning Glory Drive. As the last two that I've mentioned, the tax relief for the elderly ordinance, I did not know that it was every 3 years. I thought it was every other year. I am against the fact that we're making these changes. This should all be done at the annual town meeting. And again, I don't know how much it's costing us, but $3,000 to $4,000 or maybe more, just because we're going to a town vote. So again, the approval of tax relief for elderly ordinance, dropping it to $600,000, better not vote for this, because the state is dropping lots of bills on top of us. A lot of state taxes they want. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on item 3? Hearing no one, we will recess item 3 to a machine vote and move to item 4. Item 4 is authorization for the town of Easton to join the Westport-Weston Health District. And with respect to this resolution, we will hear from Mark Cooper.
Good evening. I'm Mark Cooper, Director of Health for the Westport-Weston Health District, 180 Bayberry, Westport, Connecticut. The Health District has made an offer to the town to join the Health District to provide full-time comprehensive services after your existing staff decided to retire. We think it would be a good move for the town, but of course it's up to the townspeople to decide if they want to do so. There's been several public information sessions. I guess it was already last fall. I believe those are posted on your website. We also had a public hearing, which I also believe is on your website, and a rather lengthy presentation with all the facts should also be on the website. So I'm not prepared to repeat all that this evening, but to again offer the citizens of Easton full-time comprehensive public health services fully compliant with all state mandates. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard with respect to Resolution 4?
Sorry, it's Ann Minuski, Morning Glory Drive. I've kind of done my homework, sadly. And I am a former treasurer of Citizens for Responsible Government, if anybody wants to talk to me after the meeting. So the authorization for the town of Easton to join the Westport-Weston Health District. When the individuals decided to retire, it seems like we did not have our selectmen go forward to actually look to have individuals to fulfill the roles of the health department of Easton. And I'm very concerned by that. As they say, as I've provided in lots of testimony, the devil's in the details. If you would look into the Westport-Weston Health District information, somewhere buried is the fact that Westport-Weston Health District will be able to sell land. Sell land because they're the Westport-Weston Health District. So look at the information. Some of the information's on the Easton Eye in regard to, I believe it was the brochure we handed out at the primary, number 3. So please do your homework.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment with respect to item 4?
Yes, hi, Steve Landa, Black Rock Turnpike. I had heard through one of those informational meetings that there might be either limited or part-time service available to Easton as a part of joining the Westport-Weston Health District, and I was very concerned about that and thought that maybe this might not be the right move for our town.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment with respect to item 4? Yes, please step forward to the microphone and state your name and address. Thank you.
Lee Silvestro, Beers Road. Easton hadn't planned at all to speak tonight, but having gone to the initial hearing on the Westport-Weston District, having watched the Zoom meeting, having had the benefit of their help through COVID, the full-time help we would get, the expansive nurses, the hours, I can't imagine the town not seeking this service. I think it would be a tremendous benefit to us. I hope we take advantage of it.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak with respect to 4? Mr. Bindles.
So I was asked to, am I on? Yep. I was asked to read a comment. The author is Sherry Harris. Number 1, will we still be a small town? Instead of maintaining our own full-time health department serving Easton's 7,500 citizens, we will be part of a health district that has a 3-town population of 45,500 plus. The list of establishments above, and we will have only 1 of 6 votes determining the service size and finances going forward. Will we go from personal service to press 1 if, press 2 if, ... Give it an actual try. Call 203-227-9571 for the full list. Number 2, what are we giving up to save money? Is the criteria just the lowest bidder? Are we bargain hunting? Is that how you shop for your personal health care? What will be the level of service when you are a very small fish in a very big pond? Rural Westport is nothing like Easton, and the WWHD regulations are geared toward a municipality that has all the components listed below, not towards a town like Easton with 7,500 residents, 3 grandfathered stores, and acres of farmland, watershed, and reservoirs. By joining the WWHD, Easton will position itself as a small rural appendage to a larger, more complex population center. Westport is home to 75 restaurants, 49 retail stores, 27 physicians' offices, 12 gas stations, 9 physical therapy offices, 13 beauty salons, 15 hair salons, 8 home care companies, 10 massage businesses, 2 beaches, 1 state park, 2 beach clubs, 2 country clubs, 9 delicatessens, 3 ice cream parlors, 6 personal training businesses, and 11 spas. This is data from the Westport Tax Assessor's Office. In addition, it includes 3 beaches, a train station, access to I-95, the Merritt Parkway, and Metro North, with significant exposure to New York City.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment with respect to item 4?
Yeah, Victor George from Far Horizon Drive. You know, we are close, work close hand in hand with Reading as far as our educational system. Why didn't we join with Reading or have them join with them as far as the health district and with the this system? I think that would have been a closer agreement. You know, would be in as much as we are with Reading. It's close to Reading, and I think that would be a better proposal than going with Westport, who's much bigger. You know, was that ever considered? I'm asking the Board of Selectmen. Did you ever consider that?
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment with respect to item 4?
Chester Sobolski, Sherwood Road, 99. I've been approved for a septic system by Polly Edwards for an outbuilding I have to make into a studio. Will the regulations change if we join the Westport Weston Health District? And I'm concerned about that their restrictions, their requirements might be more severe than when I had my septic, my perk test done. I had it engineered, and I'm just wondering what would happen with me. Do I have to do the process over? And if I do, I'd like to know who I send the bill to in Easton. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment with respect to item 4?
Dwight Senior, 56 High Ridge Road. My concerns are, how is that going to affect people building homes and our land use? I feel that Westport and Easton is apples and oranges. We just heard the stats on the commercial development there. And Another person spoke saying we're only going to have a 1 in 6 vote. I think this whole bargain is completely lopsided. Easton's going to have more to lose than it will to gain. Polly made the recommendation that we did a merge, but she also cited the fact, I can't remember the exact terminology, but you'll never find anybody to work part-time for this job for $40,000 a year or whatever that dollar amount was. So, having said that, I mean, I think it's absolute lunacy that we do not hire our own person to service our own town, giving people's septics, given, you know, it impacts people building homes, and mainly if it affects any type of land use change in our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment with respect to item 4?
I'm going to take the selectman's prerogative then for just a minute. Reading was considered. It is not a viable option at this time. They are looking at what we are doing with this health district, and that may come into play for them in succeeding years, but it was discussed. Mark, help me if I'm wrong here, but we're applying the same statutes in terms of sanitation. Mark's nodding his head. So to the gentleman who asked, there will be no change in the regulations governing your septic system, and I'll stop there.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment with respect to item 4? Seeing and hearing none, we will recess item 4 to a machine vote and move on to item 5. Item 5, finally, as an advisory question, should the town appropriate $249,400 for the local match requirement to 20% of the total project cost of $1,247,000 for costs associated with constructing a multi-use pedestrian path along Sport Hill Road from the entrance of Helen Keller Middle School to the crosswalk at Silverman's Farm? Is there any member of the public who would like to make a comment with respect to item 5?
Would you like to go, Justin?
Oh, my apologies. I cut off poor Justin G. Orlando. My apologies, Justin.
No worries. Hi, Justin G. Orlando, represent land use. Here representing the Land Use and Planning Department of Easton. I also live in Easton on Keller's Farm Road. Just some background on the path. It is a multi-use path from the Helen Keller Middle School driveway to the crosswalk at Silverman's. The path is going to be provide off-road use for pedestrians, bicyclists, those in a stroller, people in a wheelchair, crutches, you know, whatever, non-motorized form of transportation they want to take. It provides a safe area away from the high-speed traffic and the volume on Sport Hill Road, separated by some grass and utility poles. It'd be 8 to 10 feet wide from the middle school driveway to the first driveway at the Easton Village store, and it'd be made of asphalt. From the village store, it would be a 6-foot concrete sidewalk to the Silverman's crosswalk. There would be a 2 to 4 foot grass shoulder from the curb on the road to the edge of the multi-use path, and then another 2 to 4 feet of grass on the other side. The path will provide for bidirectional traffic, so the reason it's 8 to 10 feet wide is to allow for basically bicyclists to go in both directions. Along the entire strip, the pathway would be on state right-of-way. It's not encroaching on private property. So some people asked about the maintenance costs. The estimates for that are somewhere between $1,500 to $3,500 a year for snow plowing, mowing the grass, keeping it clean, things like that. Also for the long-term maintenance that's required, crack sealing, things of that nature to protect it and keep it lasting for a long time. It's been brought up that the kids from the middle school do sometimes take a back way to get to the village store and Silverman's. At the design charrette that we held in 2019, a team of engineers and planners and representatives from the town all walked both along Sport Hill Road and through that back pathway the best we could find. Now, we identified that Sport Hill Parkway was unsafe as it is now, and the way through the woods, it has a lot of topography that's difficult to get through. You're going through the woods. More importantly, either if you go all the way down Vets Park to Old Oak Road, you then have to travel up Old Oak Road, which is even more constricting than Sport Hill Road, and it's a town road. Or if you cut through the woods to get directly across from the back entrance for Silverman's and the village store, in order to get there, you have to trespass on the water company land and they haven't issued permits for that as far as I know. And also, they're very against having any forms of transportation that involve tires. So bicycles are generally not allowed on their property. Also, that direction would take an extensive amount of construction. There'd be a lot of cuts and fills. You're going through a lot more wetlands. There's a water course that you have to find a way to cross. And you also have to acquire private property, some sort of right to get through there. So it's much more difficult to make that work as opposed to going on the side of the road on Sport Hill Road. So in 2019, the town applied for a Transportation Alternatives Program grant to help fund a potential project that would bring children and others from the middle school to the village store and Silverman's on a safer route. The project ranked first. It was ranked against other towns that submitted proposals in the Bridgeport-Stamford Transportation Management Area. That's basically 17 towns from Stamford through Ansonia. Our project received the highest score and is the first one to be funded based on the safety improvements, the fact that we have little or no facilities in town right now, what it's connecting, the middle school, the neighborhoods, the community center, the playground, all the way up to, one of the only places in town to get a soda or a candy bar, the Silverman's, Shaggy Coos is right there, the Sherwood Farm. It connects a lot of things, and it's one little distance that's just very unsafe. The grant provides 80% of the total cost of the project, and for our application, we included the design portion of it as well. So it's going to reimburse 80% of both the design and construction. The total projected cost right now is $1.25 million. The town share would be $250,000. I guess that's pretty much a good little summary of it.
Thank you. Mr. Giorlando, please accept my apologies for not calling you up. Is there anyone who wishes to make a comment with respect to item 5?
Dolly Curtis, 35 flat.
Ms. Curtis, if you could pull the microphone down, perhaps.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dolly Curtis, 35 Flat Rock Road. So I have a question, but I understand that you can't get an answer tonight because we're not doing that. So I'm going to present the question. Maybe Justin can give me the answer. So I'm trying to understand this. So we're going to take into 8 to 10 feet off the road situation in that half mile. And we're not taking it, as we talked about earlier, from private property. So we're not going to take the front of Broma's former house in that big lawn area. So if we're going to take it from the road, and you know how highly trafficked the road is, coming from that 3-way intersection and then will that narrow the road then? And then all this traffic, I need to understand that. So if we're taking it, will the road narrow right in that area and then widen out again? So that's my question, Justin. So if you could help me with that, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to make a comment. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment?
Justin Gerlando, just want to clarify what I mentioned earlier. So the state right-of-way includes the road and some of the area off the side of the road. In this case, the state actually owns approximately 16 feet from the Sport Hill curb line to the east. So the property line is actually 16 feet off of the road. This path, if you start at the curb on Sport Hill Road, go 2 to 4 feet in, and then you would begin the path, and the path would be 8 to 10 feet. And then there'd be a graded grass shoulder 2 to 4 feet. So in its minimum, as it's proposed, it'd be from the curb, 2 feet, 8 feet, 2 feet, so it'd be 12 feet off the curb. And its maximum, it would be, 4, 10, and 4. That last 4 is just grass. If the right-of-way is a little bit further, there may be some sloping rights that are required just to tie in the ground. But other than that, the actual path itself will be entirely on state right-of-way. Doesn't mean it's in where the existing road is right now, but it's within the state right-of-way on the side of the road. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment with respect to item 5?
Please go ahead. Hi, good evening. Dan Lent, Banks Road. I have kids at Keller. Actually went to Keller myself. I grew up in town. I'm a lifelong resident. And the safety of our kids is paramount. Obviously, it's unsafe the way it is now. But Mr. Kapinski and I talked about this once, and there is a safer option, which is what I used to do when I was a kid, was we would just walk on the nature trail. We would go every morning before school. We would buy candy. We'd bring it back. We'd sell it to the kids at school. So I did this. I did it every day. I know it's safe. You come out on Old Oak Road, which is not a busy road. You can walk in front of that equestrian place, or you can walk up. Mr. Silverman has an easement. So he has a piece of land. So like, for example, it's a back entrance to his operation when it gets busy. So you can walk that way too. So, it's much safer to walk when you're not walking on the side of a highway. This proposal doesn't make sense from an engineering standpoint because you don't have any guardrails. You don't have anything to prevent cars that are traveling at 45, 50 miles an hour from running into the kids who are on the sidewalk. So just like you wouldn't put a sidewalk on the side of the Merritt Parkway without guardrails, you wouldn't put this without guardrails along this very narrow, think about how narrow this is too. The reason it's dangerous is because it's a narrow, and it's on a hill also. So what they're proposing to do is put a whole bunch of kids on the side of a highway and encourage them to ride bikes and skateboards and everything else. And why? When they can easily just go through the woods, it's much, much safer. So from a safety point of view, I really think it's just common sense that you wouldn't put your kids on the side of a highway, and you wouldn't encourage that group to be there. Right now, there's only a few kids who use it. You don't need it in the winter, for example. You only need it when school's in session. For example, who's going to use this in the summer? We're going to have this enormous sidewalk that nobody uses. So then that begs the question that this is really part of increasing tourism in town. They have this idea of agro-tourism. They want to bring tourists up to our town from all over. And this is part of that. This design charrette, when you look at it, this is just the first part of it. They want to take my road, Banks Road, and turn it into a one-way road and build a huge sidewalk down it so that you can only travel down one way. They want to run this sidewalk all the way down Center Road to Town Hall. So don't be fooled. This is just, as Mr. Kapinski said, this is the camel sticking its nose under the tent. This is just the first part of commercial development. And this is all about building a village district, building something like they have in Weston, which is a disaster. Talk to anybody in Weston. So it really makes no sense from an engineering or safety standpoint, and you have to ask yourself, why are they doing this? And they're doing it because it's part of the village district, and it's part of bringing commercial development to a non-commercial town. Our town, the beauty of it is that it's non-commercial. We have a magic formula of 3-acre and 1-acre zoning, and we're a reservoir town, so we protect the water supply for Fairfield County. So that's the beauty of our formula. We are anti-commercial zoning in Easton. That's why you move here. And this is just a thinly veiled attempt
Sir,
to
could you
bring
wrap up?
that.
We're reaching our 3-minute mark.
Yep, so that's it. But it doesn't make sense from a safety standpoint to have your children on the side of a highway with no guardrails when they could simply walk on the nature trail like myself and all the other Easton residents do. Easton is not about sidewalks, it's about nature trails. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment on item 5?
Ross Ogden, Beers Road. All due respect to the former speaker, I think he got one thing right, which is this is definitely a safety issue. Where I think he's not correct is that if he was out there today, he would have seen lots of kids walking today. I personally witnessed well over 20 kids up and down that stretch. So they are not taking the Woods Way, which maybe he did in his youth. So the reality is that that's being used today for traffic, pedestrian traffic from kids. And my conviction, my belief is that it would be used by adults as well if it was in place. Planning and Zoning Commission studied the nature trail that he's referring to in depth, brought in state planners and other engineers to evaluate it, and it's not feasible. Not to mention the fact that the Sport Hill pathway is available for the grant funding, which is covering 80% of the cost of this. There is no grant funding available for a nature trail. So in my perspective, this is definitely a safety issue. I'm fully in support of it, and I strongly believe this would be a tremendous amenity to the town, and it's going to be very helpful from a safety perspective and hopefully avoid a tragic accident.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard?
Good evening, Art Lasky, 399 Center Road. Couple things. First off, it's a shame that this was not put onto the ballot for a vote for approval by the voters of the town instead of an advisory. That was put on by the selectmen. The Board of Finance, of which I am a member, by the way, failed to pass this and allow the people of the town to vote on it in the first place, which I find ironic because I think the voices of the people of the town are always respected. However, if the chance exists that it might not actually go the way that certain people want, then we don't get the chance to vote on it. I think that's a shame. Secondly, this is about a well-studied, well-thought-out plan with state money to improve a safety situation. I can tell you all my kids, 4 of them, have gone to Keller. I've been in this town for over 20 years. I'm a single father for a large part of that. Many times I had to tell my kids, I can't be there after work on time to get you at Keller. Can I pick you up 10 or 15 minutes later? And my kids would say, can we go to the Easton Village store and we'll meet you there? And I'd say, all right. And I would cross my fingers and hold my breath that they weren't going to get killed on that roadway. It is a dangerous roadway. Putting a sidewalk, a path there, is not only a safety issue, and thank God no one's been killed yet. And it's only a matter of time, and I hate to say that, but I can tell you there's liability issues if we don't follow through on what we know to be the right thing to do. This is state money. The state of Connecticut, from which everybody complains we never get anything from the state, all we do is pay taxes. They're going to put $1 million into our town to improve safety for our kids, and we're going to tell them, no, don't, we don't want it. Well, the next time we need something or want something, you know what they're going to say to us? Forget about it. We'll give it to somebody else. We'll give it to Westport. We'll give it to somebody who gets all the rest of the money anyway. We don't get much from the state. This is an exact example of how the state can work with us to improve life around here. Why is it a good move? The quality of life in our town. We've got a dog walking park. We've got a community center. We've got a school. We've got a village store. You can walk your dog on a Sunday. Come out of Keller, take a right, go down, grab an ice cream or grab a soda with your kid. Walk up to Silverman's. You can play on the playground that our Park and Rec Fund is paid for. Play down with your kids, walk down go to the village store and go to Silverman's with your kids and let them pet the animals. It's a wonderful way to offer our residents an improved quality of life. And for $250,000, it's a great investment in our town and in improving our town for our people. So the idea that we would say no to this money or not even let the people of the town vote on this, to me, is incredible. And vote on it for approval, not for a non-binding issue. So for a lot of reasons, this has been well thought out. Justin and his folks in the state, the charrette that went on, nobody spoke out against this for the most part. There is a concern, and I understand it, about the character of the town being changed. In my view, we have a loving, wonderful community that cares about our children. That's the character of this town. Putting in
the 3-minute mark, so could you
putting in a walkway off a main road to provide safety is keeping exactly what the character of this town is, which is to provide a wonderful, livable place for our kids, for our elders, for people to walk from the carnival back up to their cars. It's a wonderful addition to this town, and I can't even believe that they're seriously considering not having that approval. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment with respect to item 5?
Yep, here she goes. Ann Minuski, 20 Morning Glory. Several things. One, I would like it to be transparent this evening. I said I was a member of Citizens for Responsible Government. I ran for Selectman, Board of Education. It'd be really good to know what Mr. Lasky and Mr. Ogden do in town, for transparency's sake.
Please confine your comments to the substance of the resolution.
As an advisory question,
Thank you.
and the great point from Art on the advisory versus, now it can't go on the vote. This is another problem because the Board of Finance already ruled on this. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not seeing anything that could not have been put on the annual town meeting. The annual town meeting will be.
Please confine your comments to the substance of the resolution.
Yes, and the resolution, and we get how many annual town meetings? 1. This is a special meeting. So the public is here under COVID speaking out to what matters to us in town. So in regard to this, Dolly, you had a wonderful question. Part of Bromer's yard looks like it's gone if they want to put a sidewalk in. 16 feet, I heard. I thought it was less than that. The problem is, the issue is, the Board of Finance said no because we have an EMS building that is in need to be repaired. I don't know what exactly, but I've heard that this is a critical issue. We want our emergency medical services people to be protected, to have the building, I think it's 95 years old, something like that. So we need the funds, the $250,000, to do those repairs and not for a sidewalk. I have 3 boys, 22, 18, and 15, and they have walked through Easton. They went to Easton Country Day. They've walked the streets of Easton. We don't have any sidewalks, and I think we are doing very well since 1845. We want to protect our land, our water, and not have sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment with respect to item 5? Please step forward.
Andy Ketchel from 85 Ketchel Street again. I'm the chairman of the Board of Finance and cast the deciding vote that rejected the appropriation request for this sidewalk. And I think the public deserves to know the reasoning behind that vote. It's not strictly a dollar issue, although there is a financial aspect to it. General rule of thumb is that building a new road, like a typical road in a subdivision, 2 12-foot travel lanes, base to accommodate vehicular traffic, drainage, costs about $1 million a mile. This is $1.25 million for an 8 to 10 foot wide sidewalk with a base that only needs to support bicycle and pedestrian traffic, 1/3 of a mile long. So that's on a per square foot basis 6 to 8 times as expensive as building an entire road. We never got any explanation for why the cost is so extraordinarily high for this project. But beyond that, I asked Mr. Giordano when he was presenting it what alternatives were considered, and he was not at all interested in any other possibilities. I mentioned the right-of-way that exists that starts behind the EMS building, goes behind Easton Village Store, comes out on Old Oak Road. I said it would take about a 750-foot path to go from Old Oak Road to the parking lot by Veterans Field. He had objections to that from several standpoints. First, he said the right-of-way is too wet to be suitable for a bike and pedestrian path. However, if you look at the 10-year plan of conservation and development that supposedly drives the activities of the Planning and Zoning Commission, that right-of-way is shown as being recommended for a bicycle and pedestrian pathway. An area that is not shown for such a pathway is the section of Sport Hill from Silverman's to Keller's driveway. He also said that he felt that the intersection or the crossing of Old Oak Road would be far too dangerous. That area, is on the flat part of Old Oak. I think good sight lines in both directions, no turning vehicles. As somebody who regularly uses Old Oak Road, and if any of you do, you know that the sight lines from Old Oak onto Sport Hill are extremely poor. Vehicles coming north, coming over the top of that hill, give you only a very brief window to decide whether or not to make a turn. If we have a sidewalk and kids on a bicycle coming from EVS headed towards Keller, if someone is in a vehicle traveling on Sport Hill to make a left turn on Old Oak, they're going to be concentrating on seeing if a car is coming over the crest of that hill. They're not going to make a casual turn because you're too concerned that somebody's going to come up and you're going to get hit. But they're not as likely to be looking to the north towards EVS to see if someone on a bicycle or a pedestrian is headed south on that sidewalk.
We're reaching the 3-minute mark, so if you could wrap up.
Okay. There was also the point that Aquarian would never permit us to cross that property, that 750-foot stretch. I asked if he had contacted Aquarian. He said no. So I contacted them. I've been in touch with their manager of environmental protection. He is chairman of the Centennial Lands Committee that has control of that property. He has put it on their agenda to consider offering permission to Easton to put in a trail that would be similar in construction to the one that's on the Pequannock River Valley in Trumbull and Monroe. I can't, in good conscience, support going forward with this project with all of those issues still in the air and without having solid answers to those questions. I think that safety is obviously paramount, but I think the other route that I've just talked about is far safer than going along Sport Hill Road, regardless of who's going to pay for it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment?
Hi, it's Dan Lent again. I just wanted to follow up on what Mr. Cashel said. I remember speaking against the traffic issues when they were going to expand the town store area and try to build a small mall there. And at that time, Police Chief Candy was opposed to any increase in any kind of traffic there. He said we would need a traffic light because on average, there's about an accident once a month when you turn out from Center Road onto Sport Hill Road. I drive it every day. And, you know, the other problem about that is it's so poorly designed that our fire and our EMS all have to come out there. So a perfect example is when Silverman's Farm backs up for miles, which is also a big nuisance because the road isn't designed for it. Our EMS can't get out and our fire trucks can't get out. So this area is just, you know, not designed for the kind of traffic you want to introduce by flooding it with pedestrians, children, or adults. So you would need a traffic study, just like they failed to do when they proposed, you know, building a mall or a McDonald's or whatever they want to build in the town center there. So you would need a real traffic study in order to have this be safe, because otherwise you're just putting a bunch of kids on the side of a highway with no guardrail. So I just wanted to make that point too. So I agree with Mr. Cashel that it's an unsafe area right now for traffic, never mind introducing all these pedestrians who are kids and are uncontrolled on bikes and skateboards and everything else, and plus they're going down a huge hill. So everyone's on their phones, everyone knows how unsafe people are driving now. It really just makes no sense.
Thank you. Just as a matter of procedure, let's let everyone speak once before we have a person speaking for a second time. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ro Fellows. I live at 11 Tersana Drive. I wasn't planning to speak, but I feel strongly about this project. I have 2 kids at Helen Keller Middle School. I personally think it's such a wonderful idea for our town and for our children, and I really thank everyone who worked on it. I think it's also a really good deal financially. I think it's a great investment by the state in our town. So I just wanted to add my support on behalf of our kids. The concern about sidewalks and speed doesn't resonate with me. You know, we have sidewalks in Fairfield on the Post Road, and children ride bikes and walk safely on those. So I think safety concerns could be addressed, and just wanted to add my support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on item 5? Mr. Bindleglass.
I'm sorry, I'm going to just read one more comment that was sent to me. This is from Grant Montserrat. At the March 9th Easton Board of Finance budget meeting, it was clearly pointed out that we desperately needed a new EMS building to protect all of our citizens, including our health-compromised seniors, who are among the most frequent users of our emergency medical services. You can hear the horror stories of our dilapidated 95-year-old EMS building on the video recording of that meeting. Rather than strongly advocate for an updated EMS facility for the health and safety of our entire town, Dr. Bindleglass and the Board of Selectmen have chosen to immediately revisit the Board of Finance's 2-day-old rejection of funds to build a sidewalk to the village store for Helen Keller students and called for a townwide advisory vote on the matter. Nobody at the March 9th Board of Finance budget meeting made a sufficiently compelling case that we need a sidewalk, and our Board of Finance justifiably denied funds for it. All of our citizens, especially our seniors, badly need our help here. Today's technology and social networking empower parents to easily generate support for issues like hefty school budgets, and parents understandably support their kids in droves, but our vulnerable seniors are pretty much left on their own. Seniors are not nearly as active or proficient in electronic media and social networking, and they're not as able or inclined to get out to the polls, especially in the dregs of March in the midst of this dangerous pandemic. The Board of Finance was right in denying this unnecessary expenditure for a sidewalk, and I believe the Board of Selectmen has chosen the wrong priority in its failure to advocate for a new badly needed EMS building. Easton citizens should vote no on the pathway advisory question at the March 3rd machine vote and implore our Board of Selectmen to push for what we really need in Easton, a new EMS building.
Just so the record is clear, I believe the vote is on March 30th, so that no one is misinformed by what might have been in that comment. Anyone else who wishes to speak, if you have not yet spoken, would you please step forward first? Anyone? Go ahead.
I have not yet spoken on this matter.
Thank you.
Okay. Steve Landa, Black Rock Turnpike. Coming to you as a concerned citizen and parent, and I recognize the dangers of walking on that road. I've thought about this situation many times myself. 2 daughters who are both in school, who have been there. And one of the things I think about and I haven't been able to gather all the data and information on this matter, but when I think about 16 feet on the eastern side, I think about how close that gets to the gas pump at the Easton Village store. I think about that next little horse farm and the fences and the building and the trees, and I'm trying to imagine how far that encroaches into that space and what that would do overall to traffic. And I know that they said that there's been studies, but I feel as a citizen that I haven't been able to get enough information on this. Perhaps there's some information on the actual grant Maybe we could learn a little bit more. You brought this to sort of an advisory status here, and I think as a citizen, and I know that there's a lot of other people out there just like me who don't have the benefit of this information. And just as we're starting to learn a little bit more about it, we have to ask ourselves questions like, is there more follow-on development planned to go along with this? You know, what's behind this? I understand it's a grant, but are there any strings attached? Are we beholden to the state for anything for this? And so I would ask that this matter at this time, and like some of the other folks who are involved with the Board of Finance who had voted down, had said that there may just not be enough information available to us. And I think as you know, citizens of the town, that we deserve to have the ability to make an educated decision, maybe see some more of this information before, you know, we would be asked to even to vote on it, or, you know, so at this point I would say probably we need that information.
Thank you for your comment.
Jeff Becker, 5 Cedar Hill Road. I want to know if there's been an accounting for what it will cost to replace this sidewalk when it needs replacement in about 20 years. I want to know if the homeowners who will have this sidewalk in the yard have all been notified of that impending possibility. I haven't heard anyone say that there was any effort to even consider making a much smaller pathway that would be much more in keeping with the small town that we live in. And since the school children have managed for years to get to the store through the woods, it just doesn't make any sense that we can't manage to do that. The kids can do it, and it needs to be tidied, or a boardwalk needs to be built. That could be built for a lot less than $1.25 million. And this giant pathway will basically turn the town into a mini city that I don't think most of us want. The charrette was not scientific at all. Anyone could vote from anywhere multiple times. And as Mr. Lent said, what will prevent people from driving cars on this sidewalk? And what will the response be after it happens once? Will we end up with guardrails, bollards, or something that makes it look even worse than it will by creating this massive other road that people will certainly potentially drive on? We should remember that development only adds to our tax bill, and that the state tax money that they're giving back to us as a grant is money that we gave them in the first place. Vote no. The Board of Finance already has. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, Sherry Pooley, Sport Hill Road. I actually live on the pathway. The idea I completely support. I've been thinking about this for many years. I've lived there for 18 years. However, I must have missed the meetings about the design for it. I also am listening to a lot of the comments. I feel that it would be really helpful to have the full design before the vote, because I think that could help actually push the vote over. I think that it would actually help. So I'm definitely not here to say push the vote off because I don't want it. I want this. My kids live there. I run there. I'm kind of an expert on that road. People are going to use it no matter what. The idea of a smaller pathway is actually probably pretty good too. So my suggestion would be to do the design completely for the people who live there, and for a better understanding to make sure that all the questions are answered. And I think they can be answered, and I think they can be answered in the right way to make people excited about it. Maybe no bikers are allowed on the path. Maybe it is just for walking. You know, I think there are ways to make this work, and I really hope that it can happen.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment on item 5? Please step forward. Adam.
Good evening. My name is Joe Pachek. I live on 39 Riley Road. I can respect both sides of the story for safety, but I'm going to speak on a personal perspective for my family. I've been asking Parks and Rec for lights over at the playground over at Keller and at the tennis courts, as we're a tennis family. I've even offered to pay for something along those lines and have never heard anything back. My concern for my family is we do not get much benefit from the town of Easton. Both mother and I are working quite often, and the one thing we do enjoy is the parking, the playground and the tennis courts over at Helen Keller. Has there anything been done to take a look at the people that might be coming to use this pathway? Where are they going to park? Whenever their soccer field has games, people park all over on the grass, have no respect for that area. Also, whenever they come to use the playground, whether it's town members or people who are from out of town, they also park wherever they feel like they want to park, leaving people who want to utilize that area in a proper manner just kind of left out, I guess you could say. So those are just my concerns, but I can respect everybody that is speaking about behalf of their kids for their safety as well.
Thank you.
Candace Gordon. I'm here with my husband, Sean Gordon. He's the handsome guy in the wheelchair over here. We're all for the sidewalk. Some people pointed out maybe there's alternative routes that could be done for cheaper. I don't know enough about it. As a family, we like to have a safe pathway for the entire family. My husband in a wheelchair, 16-year-old daughter, 9-year-old granddaughter, our dog, to be able to go to the dog park, to the playground safely. My 16-year-old, when she was at Helen Keller, her and her friends walked from the school to the village store. I had two worries. One, are they going to get hit? Or two, when they walk on the grass, they come home and I find ticks on them. So it's, you either get hit by a car or you have ticks. And whether there's a sidewalk or not, kids are going to walk that route. I see them in the mornings. I see joggers. Sean actually tried to do that route from the dog park back to our house. We're on Sport Hill. We're right next door to Silverman's. So it's that route that we're talking about right now. And it was a bun-clenching half an hour until he got home. It's dangerous, especially that old section. As a family, as residents of Easton, and Sean's been a lifelong resident, several generations, we want to be able to partake in resources this town has to offer. And having a sidewalk that we as a family can use, I think we'd be able to take part. The gentleman before me, I feel your pain. You don't think you get much out of the town. Something like this, I think we'd be able to take part in. There was something else I can't remember. There were so many other people that spoke, and I can't remember everything I wanted to say. But we're for it, the Gordons.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who has a comment with respect to item 5? Feel free to step forward, unless we have someone who has not yet made a comment.
First, hi, Dwight Senior, 56 High Ridge Road. I'm really glad Sherry spoke because she's right on that section. I just have, well, she brought up a very, very good point. Is there a plan, an architectural plan? And what I'm leading at is, in this plan, is there any lighting? We have some lights at Silverman's. It gets dark. Are there plans to run lights down this walkway? And my only other really concerns, I'm mixed reaction on this, but Justin quoted $1,300 in maintenance. It snowed 13 times this winter. There's no way you can maintain that trail for $1,300. If it snows 13 times, you're going to go shovel that thing with an ATV for $100? But my main concern was, are there lights? Will there be lights? That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Feel free to step forward.
Hi, Justin Gerlando, Keller's Farm Road. So we did evaluate the alternative route that goes through the woods as part of the design charrette process. People involved with that process were engineers and planners from 2 different consultant groups and the Regional Council of Government, all transportation fields, very knowledgeable in that area for, multi-use paths. Going through the woods, I believe that might be class 1, or it's at least class 2 water company land. And there is a water course there that leads directly to the reservoir in the public supply watershed. Crossing over that to create what we're looking for an ADA accessible path from the middle school to the village store in Silverman's would be very extensive. So in order to support, someone in a wheelchair to be able to get through those woods would be highly impactful to the wetlands, and creating a crossing over that water course would be very expensive, much more than the $1.25 million for this path. The funds actually come from the federal transportation bill. It's a set-aside program that requires the state to set aside a certain amount of money specifically for non-motorized transportation. So bike paths, sidewalks, transit centers to take advantage of that, but that's not Easton. So in our case, we went for multi-use path. The reason it's 8 to 10 feet wide, that's to allow 2 directions of travel, so you don't have to have something on both sides of the road. The current Police Chief Doyle, past Police Chief Shaw, the principal of Helen Keller are all in agreement that there are quite a number of students that do travel on the road. So it's a recognized habit for our kids, as well as other people. So there is traffic there. This path creates a much safer situation for the people that are already doing it. The grant itself also is paying for the design of the path. So this is a conceptual plan. In design, and especially when federal funds are involved, there's public info meetings and public involvement. There'd be outreach to the property owners. Whether or not they're impacted, we'll talk to them all. Have talked to many of the property owners also. And the maintenance budget, it's an average that was found. There's the low end of 1,500 to the high end of 3,500 that we've found. Experience will dictate. We already have the equipment for the most part, and I think that was about it. So I just wanted to try to clarify a couple things.
Thank you. Mr. Cachel?
Paul has not yet spoken.
Paul Lindorfer, I'm a member of the Board of Finance also. I read that letter from, was it Grant Montserrat today? It really annoyed me. There was never any discussion within the Board of Finance of funding the walkway versus funding, a new EMS center or funding anything else. There were no discussions of that sort at all. We voted, the motion was made to appropriate funds for this, and it failed. It was a 3-3 tie vote, and we all voted for our own good reasons, and I don't have anything against anybody's reason for voting, but 3 of us felt there was enough information for this project to proceed, and we wanted to proceed with it. I would recommend that if anybody is sort of on the fence about this or thinking they'd like to have more information on it, would like to do it if they knew more about it, I would recommend that you vote yes on this measure so we can keep the project, at least the discussion of it, alive until those questions can all be answered.
Thank you.
Andy Ketchel again. Just to be clear, I have no question that we have a safety issue. To me, the question is, what's the best way to address that safety issue? Mr. Gerlando indicated that crossing the stream with the path that I had suggested was a possibility would be very difficult and very expensive, but that stream that would have to be crossed is exactly the same stream that runs under Sport Hill Road and that his proposed sidewalk would have to cross. So that issue is a wash by whichever alternative you look at. The idea that several engineers and consultants looked at it is all wonderful, but the one entity that didn't look at it and that he didn't consult is Aquarian, which is the entity that has control of the woodlands that would have to be crossed. Their manager of environmental protection is optimistic that Aquarian will be comfortable with a path that would have a permeable surface like the trail that runs up along the Paquonic River Valley that many Easton residents praise and use regularly for biking and hiking. It is maintained in a fashion so that it's easy to travel on. A wheelchair presumably would be able to navigate that same trail. I think we've got a project here where someone found a source of money and said, let me design a project around it without looking at all the alternatives. And I think we need to look at the alternatives before we talk about going forward, whether it's state money, federal money, or local money. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just point out that if the Board of Finance is interested in having a backward path through the woods and around the hill and up the back way, and this project that they're talking about isn't going to be paid for by this state grant. The state grant has approved this particular project for the safety of the kids going along Sport Hill Road. Presumably, the Board of Finance would be open to paying whatever it would cost to put that path around the back and up the backside and around. And that very well could cost a lot more than our contribution to the well-designed plan that we have with the state to build it along the side of Sport Hill Road. That's number one. Number two, kids go use the backwoods. That's nice, but not all of them do. And guess what? They're not going to. The straightest line between 2 points is a straight line. The most direct line is a straight line, excuse me. Kids are going to walk on Sport Hill Road because it's the most direct way. There's a path there now, and they still walk on Sport Hill Road. We're not trying to find the more circuitous route. We're trying to deal with the reality of providing kids the safest route to get where we know they're already walking, where they know they're already dealing with traffic, and we know they're already in danger. So, you know, the idea of putting it off for another study, the Board of Finance is never going to pay for independently. The town of Easton is going to pay for something back through the woods. It's not going to happen. Secondly, even if we did it and the money were allocated, which I doubt it would be, we're never going to get rid of the problem on Sport Hill Road anyway because the kids are still going to be there and we're still going to have the same issue and we're still going to have the potential town liability. So those are my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Art Lasky, 399 Center Road.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment on item 5? If you have not yet commented, please go first. Thank you.
Hello, Raymond Martin III, 39 Deerfield Drive. I just feel like this really needs to happen. You know, this town needs to innovate. I mean, the way I see it, you know, it's just like, you know, if we don't innovate, okay, there's all these bigger, better towns around us. Okay, Weston, Westport, Fairfield. Okay, it's like we're gonna get eaten alive. Like with the health district issue earlier. Like we're just gonna become another appendage. Like, will this town still exist in 20 years? Like, I mean, look around. Like, how many young people are in this audience today? Like, I'm like the only one except for the cameraman. It's just like I'm just saying, like, it's innovation or extinction. That's the way I see it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment? I saw Ms. Curtis and I see a hand in the back.
Chet Sobolski, Sherwood Road. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to all this comments, but one, when you put in the walkway, you're exposing the kids to carbon monoxide and diesel fuel. Second of all, the kids do not come from the village store and walk to Helen Keller. It's usually one way. So why don't we just have them get on a bus, and the bus makes the first stop at the village store, and off they go. That would prevent everything. Flashing lights, cars stopping in both directions, they get off, their parents could pick them up there. Now, if that sidewalk is going to be used, people will be parking at the village store, and there'll be no parking when they want to go play tennis, and they'll walk down, because there's no parking in the areas over there. There's no parking for the soccer. There's no parking for when they have different bonfires and stuff. So let's just, think about this. And my other question is, who paid for the engineering for all these plans? Did the town of Easton pay for it? Did the state pay for it? And who pays for the overruns? Easton always gets stiffed with extras. Thank you.
Thank you. I did see Ms. Curtis if you wish to make a comment. Is there anyone else? I think it's you, Ms. Curtis.
I don't really want to belabor this. Dolly Curtis, Flat Rock Road. And I don't really have a decision in my mind about this, but I'm listening, and I just wanted to say a few things. I was at the charrette when they first introduced this, and I think Justin mentioned it. But that was the very first time. I think it was held twice in one day, on a Saturday. And I don't remember that we voted or did anything. The point of the charrette was just to hear about the project, which several young engineer-type people gave us information, but it was just brand-new idea. And no, I don't remember any drawings at that time. Justin, were there? I don't remember anything that we saw that was drawn. It was just a discussion of possibilities. So I don't want people to think we vote. Nobody voted on anything that day, and we haven't had a further shred. The second thing is, I have this feeling that some people, I understand all viewpoints because I had kids too, one of which went there every day and loved it, visiting the village store. So I can't say that I wasn't part of this life, but I understood at one time that that's one of the highest accident-prone spots in the state. Has anybody ever heard about that? The fact that we have Center Road, and we have Sport Hill Road, and then we have cars leaving the village store. So we have like three different, I know for myself when I pull out, I'm very careful because I heard that that's a high accident area, so we've got to keep that in mind. But I just have this feeling that it should be drawn on paper, two-dimensional at least, and put somewhere or on the website or where people could look at it. And it looks like we're just the comments are mostly favorable, keeping the kids safe, and we should do this, but maybe we should have given it a little more time and seen it drawn out where you can physically look at it and see what we're talking about, because I can't envision it, how the road is not going to narrow there for the car traffic. So these are just thoughts I'm throwing out. I don't really have a decision in my mind yet. I'm glad I heard it all, though, tonight. That's why I was here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment with respect to item 5? Seeing none, it appears we are done with item 5, and we will recess that item to a machine vote. Seeing that we're done with all 5 items on the agenda, it appears that the town meeting is concluded.